What if every experience, every hardship, every obstacle was given to you, not to break you, but to mold you and strengthen you? What if the center of your suffering was actually the key to ultimate health? And what if your own pain was meant to be the catalyst for your greatest purpose? Welcome to Buddha Belly Life, empowering purpose, mind to microbiome. Welcome to the Buddha Belly Life podcast. Today I am so excited to be joined by HWCA graduate coach and best-selling author of Finding Her, Angie Lickleter. She is going to be discussing her new book, Finding Her, and she's going to be discussing a bit about her journey with Crohn's disease, coaching, and a whole lot of other stuff. So, yay, Angie! Welcome, Coach, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
This is exciting. This is an exciting day. Oh, my goodness. Every once in a while, we have a few coaches on, and it's always a good story. So, let's talk about what... a little bit about how we know each other, I guess. Well, and kind of a little bit about your past before we dig into the book stuff.
Sure. Do you want me to start?
Sure. Yep. Give them a heads up.
Well, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. It's amazing. I can't remember exactly the time. It was about 97, 98, somewhere in there, 25 plus years ago, let's just say that. And through that journey, I landed on your book, Buddha Belly, and as I started reading it, I realized a couple things. One, I knew a lot about gut health just from dealing with my own issues, as you described in your book. Two, I thought, oh my goodness, her story is like affecting me, so I should share my story. So that was kind of my first spark to possibly write a book. And then I thought, I want to get certified so I have a backing to help other people. You can say, well, I've dealt with these things. But so your book was a catapult for a lot of things for me, as far as book writing, coaching, just diving into health and wellness with my gut in general.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's very true.
Yo, that's so awesome. Well, so when Angie first came to the school, where were you in your Crohn's journey at the time when we first met?
Well, I had gone med-free. I was doing great, and I had started diving. I can't remember what the year was now, but maybe it was 2015. No, 2008. Gosh, as the years go by, it's hard to remember what year. Mm-hmm. But so I had dove into my health and wellness with doing like a raw food diet, and I was introduced to that world, and it catapulted me into diving deep into my Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed. I followed doctor's orders. I just did what they said. I knew nothing other. And of course, the internet was, not really around much then too, just a little bit. So I went off my medication, and I had been med-free for many years, and then things started to change. And, I just chalked it up to eating the wrong thing, whatever. And that's when I kind of stumbled upon your book and started the class. And that's when I got really sick with my Crohn's disease, like really, really sick. And I don't know if it was halfway through the course. Again, I can't remember. That time in my life was such a blur because things went so fast. And I know it was in 2016 or 17, somewhere in there. And I got so sick that I could get out of bed. I was hospitalized many times and ended up having a bowel resection, and kind of gave up on the hopes of ever being a coach.
And you had that bowel resection in the middle of, when you had already signed up to train. And so explain to people what that kind of means for those who don't understand what that means.
The bowel resection, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was told I had cancer in my large intestine. I did not. I tried going a whole weekend thinking that you're dying. I mean, I literally was told I had malignant cancer on a Friday, and thankfully was able to get a surgeon on Monday. But the bowel resection is, I had what's called fistulas and looping in my bowels, which I had never heard of in all the years I had Crohn's disease. They were twisted, and then I had tunneling, which is fistulas, which go from one section to your bowel, can go to another section of your bowel, or can actually go to other parts of your body. There's vaginal fistulas. It's a mechanical,
kind of like an ulcer-ish.
Yes,
it spreads.
Yes, exactly. And then I always tell people, think of your Christmas lights when you go to get them out of the box.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how you put them back in there. When you go to get them out, they're tangled up and they just are a mess. That's what was going on with my bowels. Again, tried going back on medication, tried following doctor's orders. Nothing was working. I knew something was going on, so I had to switch doctors. Wasn't happy with my past one, and he ordered an MRI, and that's when we found the fistulas and looping. So what they did is typical, I shouldn't say typical, many people that are diagnosed with Crohn's disease, it's in their ileum part of their bowel, which is where the small intestine attaches to the large intestine. And the ileocecal valve is a valve that regulates the water that goes from your small intestines to your large intestines. That area was all infected. They had to remove that valve and everything there. And then I also had a segment of my sigmoid colon removed where they thought there was malignant cancer, but it was just an abscess from inflammation. So I had 12 inches from my small intestine and 18 inches from my sigmoid colon. So I had a double bowel resection in a 5-hour surgery. So what they do is they cut that bad area out, they attach it. They originally thought I was going to need a ostomy bag temporarily to let things heal, or permanently based on what they found when they got in there. A lot of things, they can't really, when you go in for a bowel resection, it's somewhat exploratory too, because they really, MRIs can say most of the things, but once they get in there, it really tells them the true story of what's going on with your bowels and the health of your bowels. Mm-hmm. So that's what I had in 2018.
Yep. And so you disappeared for a little bit, and I'm trying to figure out, which understandably so, just for anybody listening, being in the wellness profession is not about being well all the time. It's about, it's like the vows of marriage. There's sickness and in health. Like, you're taking a position through the good and the bad to be a leader, and to, and there's times where you have to completely sit out because you just need to self-nurture and heal. But that's basically, and Angie, you weren't the first one to go through something like this. And so when was it that, explain a little bit after that, because I know some stuff happened that you started seeking, and more power to you for seeking and not just taking a crappy diagnosis and living with a lesser quality of life without seeking other possibilities. And so you started seeking. So before you called us again, talk about kind of that part.
Sure. So when I was very sick, I would say the last 6 months before surgery, I was pretty much bedridden. I say bedridden in the fact that I had no energy. And I want to go back to what you just said, because I think that's a really good point when people are going through a health journey. And my whole body just got chills, because this is it's a piece of the puzzle that's missed a lot with people that are in the wellness business. I was so depressed because I had preached eating, working out, being healthy. And I was an online fitness coach before I, found your schooling. And I had no energy to even talk to those people anymore. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? There was so much guilt, depression, all of this stuff around. I'm sick again. I'm not doing something right. This depression and kind of denial too, that, what was going on with my body. So I love that you said that, because our healing journey is not always linear. And, I think that was one of the biggest things. Like, what if people think I'm a falsehood when I get sick? So I just kind of disappeared from everything, because I thought,
you hid away in your pain. I'll just self-soothe and not let anyone know.
I was in Crohn's disease Facebook forums, and that's where I found solace in my pajamas all day long. That's where I would be, because I was taking steroids, hydrocodone, and not hydrocodone in like an addictive way, but that was the only thing that would briefly touch the pain. And I'll go into this part of it real quick, because it'll catapult me into how I came back to you. I had started taking CBD oil, and that really changed the course of my healing because I wasn't going to sit back and just sit on the couch and be sick. I'm like, I've got to find some other solutions. I've got to get off these steroids before surgery because that's very important. Your recovery from surgery is a little harder usually if you're on steroids. Your body's dependent on them, and sometimes you do not bounce back as fast. So I started researching CBD oil. I started taking it, and within days, it improved my health. I mean, as far as like, I was able to leave the house. I remember doing a Facebook Live. Nobody had seen my face on Facebook. I was 110 pounds. My jaw's all shrunken, and I was just skinny and frail. And I just was like joy to the world for getting out of the house. And when you take supplements and things that are somewhat controversial, in the wellness industry, especially new things that are coming out, people say, well, how do you know that's what it was? I don't care. If it was hope in a bottle, it didn't matter. In 2 days, I was out of the house, and my surgery recovery was miraculous. They can't even say that word, miraculous, whatever. It was a miracle. The surgeon said I left the hospital with no ostomy bag, and I was out of the hospital in 3 days instead of 7. But I was able to get off the steroids and lessen the hydrocodone with the help of CBD oil. And if I wouldn't have been fending for myself or digging around, I would have never found that solution. So after I had surgery and started feeling better and started having some hope and less despair in my life, I wanted to find out why the CBD oil helped me. And I wanted to get back to coaching because I wanted to help people with that, from, gut health to the cannabis side of it. So I enrolled in a cannabis coaching program, and at the same time, that's when I reached out to you and said, I need to circle back and grab the certification that I had started. And thank you so much for letting me jump back into that, because I honestly thought all was gone. There was so much despair and depression. I thought, my husband and I were like, I'll never work again. I just thought I was done for. I thought I was going to be on the couch forever or be sick. So if anybody's listening, the message on that as far as is just don't give up. You just got to keep going. I mean, again, it's not, health journeys are always up and down. There'll be times that my stomach doesn't feel 100% now. It's probably something I ate usually, but, so does that answer your question? That was a long, but I just wanted to kind of give the picture of everything. And that was April of 2018 that I had the surgery. That following October, I had a follow-up colonoscopy because it had been like a year since we had started doing all these tests. And they found no evidence. They took out bad stuff, but they basically said, you're good. And I haven't seen a GI doctor since.
Do you have a desire for fulfillment? Does helping people tap into their own health mentally, emotionally, and physically fire you up? Do you believe in the impact of the gut microbiome on overall wellness? You may be an HWCA coach. For more info on our cutting-edge health coach trainings, visit hwcacoach.com.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's not everyone's deal with Crohn's. No. Like, they'll go through many, many resections and all these surgeries, and it's just continuous because there's something still creating these problems in there, in the body.
But what I know to be true, 100, that's the bad thing with Crohn's disease and any IBS, any inflammatory bowel disease. Every person is different. You have some people that are like, I can eat nuts. I can't eat nuts. I can eat salad. I can't eat, that's what makes it so hard on those in the wellness industry, because you're trying to help people, and it's like everybody's different. But the thing is that, my train of thought. I just left. Boom, gone. It'll come back. It'll circle back to me in just a second. But it was an important point. But again, it'll come back.
Well, and one to sit in what you talked about for a minute, the suffering, the moments of hopelessness that can accompany different types of illness and experiences. This can be physiological disease or conditions. It can be hormonal. It can be mental health. And often it's a lot of it at one time. And I I actually have had this conversation very personally with quite a few people, even newer coaches and stuff that came to the school. How we get through, and I went through a bunch too, last year coming out of burnout and a divorce and stuff, and to where my mental health tanked so badly that, and it was somatically, my body was crapping out too. I was very anemic. Despite my diet and my exercise and all the things that I do. And so, but it was in those moments where you're like, I'm doing all that I know to do and it's not working. And that's where it's easy to lose your grip because you're losing hope with that. That's all the extent of anything you've ever known. And it can be easy to spiral and start to compound and feel like you're never going to come out of this. And then the mind starts jumping in and adding all this extra fun stuff, right? And this is where we can get into scary places mentally. And so with what you just shared, Angie, and I'm going to back it up, and I'm even going to, back it up with other people's stories who I've been able to witness. I think it's so important to talk about that part. And a great tactic is to kind of like the Alcoholics Anonymous. It was like one day at a time. Maybe we're just going to sleep today and clear our mind and tackle this little piece tomorrow. We're going to take a journal and note down anything positive, which I know I sent you Dane Johnson's stuff, I think, when we first ever chatted.
Oh, yes, yeah, totally.
Yes, with Crohn's and colitis lifestyle. And he was one of the first podcast interviews I did. And he talks about being on his deathbed. He was 120 pounds, 6'4". They were sending him, he was leaving the hospital believing he was dying. And he was going home and trying all these different things and nothing was just working. We just want to control it. We just want to have it work. And it wasn't working. And so he talked about that too. Like he just started gardening because he just had to channel something. And it's from the people that have been in these super dark spots before the overcome piece of it that is, I think, just such gold to give to anybody struggling with anything, mental health, physical health. We don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't, or you're in a healing journey. You could be going through times that are just so dang dark and you don't believe they're ever going to end. So to catch that belief system and just say, you know what? I'm just going to believe for today. I'm just going to do what I can today. I'm going to allow myself not to fight or control. I'm just going to be here today. I'm going to seek out support systems that I need today. I'm going to do my best to sleep today and let everything else work for me while I rest. You know what I mean? Just taking it one step at a time. And then I've heard people say, I just started feeling better. And these are the same people who were calling going, I don't know how I'm ever going to come out of this. Like, I don't know what to do. Where my mental health is, where my physical health is. And it's usually a physical ailment that'll kick in and it can kick up the worst mental health episodes ever because of what's going on with our body.
Depression was something I never thought I dealt with. I thought, there's no way. I am a high energy, positive person. There is no way. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I? It would be silly for me not to be depressed. It's just like, there's no way I could not be depressed at that point in my life. And I do remember what I was going to say is, if I would have not been taking care of my health before getting so sick, the other side of my recovery would have looked totally different. And I mean from a food standpoint, I mean from a mental standpoint, I mean from all aspects of it, because I was the healthiest I had been in years when I got sick. If I wouldn't have been, if I would have been overweight, the doctor said if you would have been overweight, there's no way you would have recovered like this. And I was too skinny because I was so sick I couldn't eat anything. But I mean, as far as like just taking care of my general health, I was working out. There was days I could barely move, and I went downstairs and did a few things just to keep my body moving. Because I knew how important that was for my body. So that's what I wanted to say is, instead of looking at it as a why me, I looked at it as a why not me? I was at the best place in my life to get sick. I know that sounds crazy, but if I wouldn't have been there, it would have been a lot worse. And if I wouldn't have been able to come out of that mental state, I don't think I would have woke up from surgery going, oh my gosh, I don't have an ostomy bag. I think things would have been a lot worse. So
I agree. And what a perspective change. So in the moment you struggled with the thoughts of, I'm a hypocrite. everything I've done to be healthy, nothing worked. I got sick, etc. But hindsight, you're looking back on it and going, sometimes shit happens. And because I did do all these other things, I had a better outcome, and I was able to fight through it and overcome and have these other outcomes that I wouldn't have had if I didn't prioritize my health. So you weren't a failure in your health because you got sick. You had situations that could be compounding from a million different things throughout an entire lifetime, right? And you're better able to you fared better through it. But that perspective was not what you were experiencing in the moment. That was not what your mind was telling you in the moment of it.
Right. But yeah, there's no way. Yeah, it was desolate despair. I mean, I wasn't sleeping. You were talking about just getting sleep. I wasn't sleeping. I mean, you don't realize how much we take for granted just having a good night's sleep until you don't sleep for days on end. And it can't physically. I mean, it's just insane what it does.
And the nervous system, you know, people sometimes will think they don't understand mental health, and they don't understand, like, they'll think depression, oh, you just sleep all day. And it's like, no, actually, sometimes you're depressed, but your nervous system stays wired in all of this dysregulation. And so it can become just this hell that you can't get out of, and you can't rest, and it all just compounds on top of each other. And it's incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah, it's scary. My bowels chose to be awakened at night when my husband was sleeping and he had to work in the morning. I mean, you know, it's just that whole cycle of being awake while everybody else is sleeping and being lonely and nothing working. Right. And, you know, that desolate, there's no, you know, 1-800 number you can call at 2 a.m. going, hey, I'm in pain. And when you know that going to the hospital is not, you know, the solution, they're not going to do anything for you at this point. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just kind of stuck where you're at until you find answers from the tests or whatever you're waiting on.
So what did that do for you spiritually? And when did it hit? Because I'm guessing that, like most of us, the spiritual muscle we gain from pain that we would not choose in the first place, we would never choose. My friend who's a Tony Robbins trainer said that to me. He's like, Britt, he's like, you have muscle now that other people won't have, because no one would ever consciously choose to suffer in this way. You wouldn't have said, if I said, Ange, you're going to have this great inner strength and be a force to be reckoned with, but you're going to have to go through XYZ, you probably would still go, no, I'm okay. I can.
Right. I mean, like,
I don't need that.
Having a baby is like, whatever, that's easy stuff, right? And I do equate it, the pain I was suffering through and what I was going through at the time, like, I remember it, but my mom, because she was there on the outside looking, and she'd come over a lot of times at 9 and 10 in the morning just to rub my back and console me. She reminds me how bad it was. You know, my husband does too, but I can't remember that pain so much. Mm-hmm. But what I said before about why not me, mm-hmm. that is when I realized that I need to share my story.
Right.
That was that whole, like, you've been put here. That's that aha moment. You have been put here to fight this and to not share a solution for people, because there's not a one fit solution for every person, especially in this realm of this sickness, disease, whatever. You are here to show people strength. Mm-hmm. And when I was told I had that cancer on Friday, and I thankfully was able to get an surgeon Monday to figure out what we were going to do, I'm thank goodness they had a cancellation, and thinking you're going to die and, like, saying goodbye to your family over 3 days. I mean, I remember that, because, like, right now I will get choked up talking about it, because it's like, it is the worst feeling to be told we're pretty sure you have malignant cancer. We don't know what this looks like for you. Like, what? So taking the feelings and the thoughts that I had around that and using that to help people. You know, I can't remember exactly what the pain was like. I remember it was hell. But I can tell you, ever since I went through that, I have done things that I never in a million years thought that I would be doing. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I've done that 75 hard program, you know, several times, like, completed. I quit drinking 3.5 years ago. Like, I was given this grit that I never thought I would have, but going through that, you know, made me realize that I can do anything I put my mind to.
Because it broke your fear open. It took you to the depths of some of the most scary things that a person can go through.
Yeah, and you don't, and when we go day by day and we don't really talk about it and life just goes on, you don't think about it. But when you start talking to people about it, you just go, whoa, that was a lot, and that's when it reminds us that we need to share our story more to help other people. Again, not for a solution. And I think that's part of the hard part is like people come to you and they're like, well, what did you do? I want to do that. Like, it's not necessarily about that. There's so much more to it.
And I think one of the biggest things that you give or we can give is presence in the dark spaces and a level just of grounding, because it's keeping a footing in the really, really dark times where there is no light yet, where there's no rhyme or reason, where you are feeling hopeless or afraid. It's so chronic, you don't know that you can do this another day. Right. And it's in those moments like you need something to be able to do another day. And if you at least have support systems of other people, not just going for a treatment or an option that could help, which hopefully, yes, in our toolbox, there's some things that could help. What you did with CBD. But a big part of the biggest thing that you offer is, hey, I've been in a space too where I didn't believe I could come out. And I'm here now. So the biggest thing that you're giving somebody else is the not having to sit in that alone, not having to sit with the ruminating thoughts and the spiraling and the fear and the isolation and the things. But like, hey, while you figure this out, because I'm here to help you with all the tools I have. It's going to be an investigative process and it's going to be dark, but you don't have to do it alone. That I think is where the value is.
Absolutely. And, you can talk, I think, by sharing your path with people. Because I love to go hiking, and I've had some meditative experiences with cabins and stuff, and that is in my book. But I think about the path I have taken. If somebody's following behind me, they may not stay on that exact dirt path. They may not be able to go right behind me, but I will show them where they can go. Their path may go like this, but I'm going to help them get up. I'm going to help them navigate that path. Let's just say that.
And narrow down the overwhelm.
Yes. And try to, and speaking of being overwhelmed in them, I didn't do meditation back then. I wish I would have, because that's just been a huge caveat for me since then. Centering your mind and just trying to go within, and without all the noise.
Yes. Shutting it up for a minute.
Oh God. It's hard.
I'm like, if there's a pill we could take, then I'm like, oh, they probably call that narcotics. I think that's why a lot of people numb out or get into addiction is they're trying to self-soothe that racing mind, especially if it's linked to trauma experiences and suffering. They're like, just make it stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Make that wheel stop, that gerbil wheel.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you ended up coming back. So you got into the CBD course. You ended up coming back to the school and training. And tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since then and some of this about your book and some of the things that you were able to dig into in your life to write in your book through all this. Because I know Crohn's wasn't the only thing that was inspired in the book, right? It probably just surfaced life.
Yeah. Well, it definitely. So after my surgery, again, like I said, I enrolled back in the course, and I knew that I needed to find out why the CBD worked for me. And I also knew that based on what I had purchased, I wanted to start making my own medicine, CBD, and I wanted to, if some people were interested in doing that, I wanted to, teach them how to do that. But I also knew that, it doesn't work for everybody, right? So I did coaching, and crazy, this whole thing I think was happening, because my surgery was in 2018. I was getting certified, and all this stuff was happening right around COVID. So I had lots of time on my hand, and everybody needed something, to grasp onto. And I read a book, and they talked about getting real quiet in your mind and praying. And I just went to the bathtub, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out a business to help people with this. And that's where I came up with Gut Girl Coaching. I say I came up with it. I did not come up with it. God, universe, whatever, said it to me. I got out of the bathtub in my robe and I bought website Gut Girl Coaching. That is not my current business right now. But so anyway, I did coaching for several years. Be it people who had gut issues, people that wanted to try CBD, or even people that were interested in using THC for certain elements. I would guide them if they wanted to go to a dispensary or something. Where I lived at, it was medical at the time. And I was actually working with a medical marijuana doctor as well and getting references from him. So I helped people with lots of different ailments. Well, then my husband and I did the 75 Hard program, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we quit drinking, and that was February of 22. And I always tell people go, oh, why did you quit drinking? Like, did you have a problem with it? I'm like, no. I wouldn't consider it a problem. I would say it's normal American, life, like what most of us are doing. We lived at a lake, we had happy hour, we'd go boating. I just didn't like, you talk about those ruminating thoughts when you're sick and those things. Mm-hmm. Those things were showing back up, not in the sick, but I'm like, my mind was starting to question everything I was doing. And I'm like, I am all about gut health. And why am I even drinking a little bit? Like, it's not. So anyway, and I'm not a teetotaler. I'm not one of those people. I had alcohol at my house when my friends come over. It's not like that. My husband and I just chose after 75 days to not pick it up again. So my point is, we did that. We bought a little house in Arizona, and I just decided social media was kind of getting nasty. It's hard, and that's we all kind of come in and out of that too, because it can start to tax on your mental. I mean, just advertising on social media and things like that. And my husband retired, and he was like, just quit. He's like, you don't need to work anymore. Just quit. But so I did. I kind of wrapped up my coaching business, and through 75 Hard and other things, I started journaling, started writing more. I had called my Crohn's my gut monster. And I always, after reading your book, I had started journaling and writing a little bit about my gut health. And so I always thought I would write a book about Crohn's disease and my gut health. And I would put the pen down, and then I'd pick it back up for something. And then I'd pick, it was off and on over years. Journaling, segments of writing. I was with a cannabis writing group that was supposed to publish a book. So I was like a beta person, and we got like my gut monster, that whole story figured out, and then they canceled the project. So I put the pen down again. So last year, the universe just kind of was pulling at me in different directions to pick up the pen more and more. Mm-hmm. Long story, I was directed to a publisher, and in December we met, and she said, we will publish your book, but we want you to not corner yourself into just your gut. Like, there may not be a big enough story. I mean, there is but just write, work with the book coach, just write. Well, what I realized through writing was the piece of the puzzle that was missing through everything I did, my coaching, my mental stuff, was I wasn't digging deep enough into all the other monsters in my life. Right. So as I started writing, all of these other monsters emerged. I was adopted at 7 months old. My biological father dropped my mother off at the abortion clinic. She was not able to get an abortion, so she left. So my first monster is men monsters, and I struggled with men throughout my life, always needing a man and, looking for that approval. Daddy issues, right? That's what most women is, daddy issues. I mean, it happens a lot with women.
And we're like shamed for it. Like they say it in a way like we're defective because our early life was void of healthy male examples.
Right. Yeah. And, I would say the seed of being unwanted by a man was planted before I was even born.
Right.
It was so, and then I realized, even as a health coach, food was a monster for me, which tied into the scale, which then ties into the mirror and our reflection and all of those things that women struggle with. But I just got brutally honest with myself when I wrote, and I cried. Oh my gosh, the boxes of tissue I went through as I wrote with the pen, because I actually truly physically wrote my book. But what happened was I had healing in my heart when I wrote, because all of these things I wrote about came out, and And the last chapter of my book talks about my gut monster, which is, a lot of mechanical stuff and, things about my story, which we've talked about. But what I realized was the journaling healed a part of me that food couldn't, or doctors could, like nobody else can help heal except for yourself. I mean, I'd considered therapy when I was writing, like, going to a counselor or something. I didn't need it. It was just a pen and paper that was really therapeutic for me. And then I had a meditation. I went to a little retreat and had a meditation, and it was crazy insane what happened during that meditation, and it really tied everything together for me. It's a long story, but it made me realize how important meditation is. So I have since opened my coaching back up to include a little bit of writing as well for my clients, because I really feel that, we can do food journals, right? We can write down what we're eating. Do we write down how it makes us feel? Do we write down what it really means for us? So that's kind of where, long story short, and fast forward to everything, after writing my book, I felt I need to help people again. This is where the space I need to be. And so, that's where we're at. I published my book a month ago, and I'm finding out that it's helping people from the messages I'm getting, which, that just makes it all worth it.
Totally. And like you said, like, even if it was one person, I think that that's such a great example. I'm a huge believer. This is a foundational belief now of mine, but that this purpose that we walk through in life, right, which we have choices, and some people will use their pain and become very destructive and self-focused, unfortunately. But for so many others, they'll use their pain, they'll seek to heal it and whatnot, and they'll develop great empathy for other people, and then they'll find this need almost to do something with that, to contribute, right? And like, what a cool circle that is, from suffering to contribution. It makes it to where, as a whole people, of everyone, where there's pain, always plays into a gift to somebody else, a support to somebody else, even prevention for somebody else. It's like it's used for something instead of just used for our own destruction. And yet that only resides in the individual and what they choose to do with it. But that's what you chose to do with it. And I think it's so cool. And of course you open your coaching practice back up because you don't have to do it, right? Like your husband said, you don't have to do this. Yeah. So you're not. And
if I don't coach anybody else the rest of my life, and a few people just read my book and they get what they want out of that, my book was my final healing piece. Right. And I just hope that it's a healing piece. Some part of it, people are inspired or feel that, maybe they'll start journaling, or maybe they'll start doing, just to take a piece of it, to help them, and then my job's done. Like, when I met with my publisher, I told her, I said, I'm not writing a book to become a millionaire, because that is not what happens when you write a book. I can tell you that. Even if you get over a bestseller. So, I just remind myself that if I wouldn't have done this, and in the beginning of my book, I dedicate it to my grandmother, who was such a huge part of my life. And she said, when I was debating on buying a business years ago, I bought a coffee shop, and she said, if you don't do it, you'll regret it. If you do it and you fail, then you at least know. And it's just like, you just got to go for these things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's always funny to me when people are afraid to start something that they want to do. Just like out of the fear of failure. I'm like, that's just different. Whereas I'm an absolute wuss about other things, like risk taking and stuff, like my safety. I'm such a baby. Like I'm supposed to go whitewater rafting in 2 weeks, and like, I'm already paranoid about 50 things. Like, one being the heat. I'm most paranoid, I think, about the heat. But that's what I do. I'll hold myself back, but I force myself to do it, because I'm like, it's easy for me to do that kind of hard, to create something, to put myself out there in that way. That's easy. But to step out and do risky, hard things in the world, that it's like, that is absolutely hard for me. And for other people, they're very opposite.
Yeah, everybody's got their own hard. And, you just have to, I think for a lot of people, if you just overcome that one thing, it can help catapult you. I mean, I do hiking stuff and stuff I never thought I would do. Like, I would just get anxiety about it before, like, oh, it's so scary. But now I'm like, I've proven to myself that, that I can do it. So.
Absolutely. That's so cool. And so now that you're taking some clients and stuff, what message would you have for people that are struggling with anything? Because for you it was Crohn's, but for other people it's all kinds of things. What message, like what's one thing you would want to give them to help them get through to the other side, to where you are right now?
My girlfriend says, just keep effing going, but that's what, no, I mean, this has always been my motto, take control of your health. It is your body. It is your health. I am not saying doctors are not needed, because my gosh, I needed those doctors when I needed those doctors. But I think so many of us, just do what we're told, and we don't listen to that inner being of knowing. Because we know our own bodies. Sometimes we are deaf to the signals, but if you really get to know who you are on the inside and your body, you are your own advocate. You are not doing yourself any favors by just going along with what everybody else says to do. And I mean doctors, I mean people on social media, I mean, following this person, because we've all done that, right? I mean, there's these influencers and they push this and they want you to do this, and you've got to advocate for yourself. If I wouldn't have advocated for my own self through my doctors and switched doctors, because I was like, they're not finding something's not right here, we would have not found the fistulas and the looping and I would have just tried medication after medication without it working, and who knows where I would have ended up. So when you think you've exhausted every option, keep going. I mean, that's just, you're worth it. You are worth it. And if you don't have the resources, there's ways to find them, support groups, online groups, and just believe in yourself, because you and your body are so smart, I guess,
Yeah. And like what you're saying, I think, like, step out of your head sometimes, which is where a lot of the system works in, this logical, rational, scientific, and into your intuition, because your body's communicating through so much more than just the technical things. So when we're just trying to force it, or just the diet, just the medication, just the thing, look at this, accept this diagnosis, we're ignoring a lot of the intuition that our body is giving us as to why it's sick, what all it's communicating, like what that could be connected to. That I know that my body got very physically sick this last year, and it was sick for a couple years before that. But I wouldn't have had the data until after the process. I was getting tidbits of data throughout the process, but mostly I was just trying to survive it. I didn't get the data till after, like really get it until after. And I realized that my body was pulling things out to heal, and it felt like it was dying. And I will still say to this day that I feel like part of me did die, but it was part of me that needed to, because it was the part of me that was going to keep myself sick forever. It was the part that was literally going to kill me if I didn't figure that out. And there's no way I would have known that in the process. In the process, it was just hell, right? And so I think that's also kind of like what you just said was, tap into our intuition, because the mind, there's stuff we can't even understand. And it runs on its own, and it runs out of fear and protection. And there's so much subconsciously we don't get. And so it can be our own cage, Yeah.
And trusting, and not trusting just your intuition, but if you believe in God, the universe, whatever that higher power is, because looking back on all of these things that have happened to me in my life, there's all of these memories. If you, like you said, at the end, you look back and you're like, oh, now I can see this sign and this sign. And when you said that, it made me think of a computer. We put all this information in, and when it's all said and done, then we hit print and this report comes out, and then we can see it, and we can go back and read it. And we're like, okay, but all that information's got to be there before the final printout can happen. But again, in the same respect, you've also got to know that things can change. You know, like a life event can happen. I didn't realize how bad my anxiety was tied to my flare-ups with my Crohn's until I looked back and I went, oh, no wonder I had a flare-up 2 weeks before, even a wedding or a vacation, or I always thought it was just my Crohn's. Well, I'm tying it to like anxieties, even if it's happy, life events.
Overstimulation.
Yeah. And just, I'm a high energy person and I still am, but I also have downtime and I enjoy it. I never enjoyed it before. I was feeling a void. And now it's like I was just feeling this void, and a lot of it had to do with the things I was struggling with, my different monsters, men, food, alcohol, those type of things. But I love...
Which are void fillers in themselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're just filling it with, not necessarily drugs, but, thoughts. So keeping, slowing down a little bit you cannot listen and hear if you are going 500 miles an hour.
Amen to that. Yeah.
You can't.
Completely support that. I would like to scream that from the rooftops. I was around a lot of people that haven't got that memo yet. And you realize that excessive busyness and distraction is also a trauma response. It is we all are different. There's some people who are way more extroverted, yes, but a constant need to go, distract, can't sit with it. And that's a constant running and avoidance tactic. That's response in a nervous system that maybe didn't have safety early on or went through something. You talk about being adopted at 7 months, you won't have a mental recollection of those earlier attachment experiences. Absolutely does not mean that they didn't help shape and wire your nervous system for safety.
100%. I mean, just, and I look back and I was always the party planner. Like, what are you guys doing this weekend? And I was like, oh, she's the multitasker. She's the this, she's the that. And, after I quit drinking and I started writing, it's like I visualize this path again and I turn back and look at the old person and I do miss her sometimes, that old person. Because I'm like, oh, she was a lot of fun. But I also love this new person I'm becoming after not drinking anymore and just slowing down and, Caddy saying, smelling the roses, and then just the blue skies and the sunsets and
you're able to hear the data now.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yes, you're able to. Yes, exactly. I'm able to hear that stuff. And like the gut girl coaching, if I wouldn't have slowed down for a few minutes in that bathtub and really got quiet in my mind, I would have never heard that. And the meditation I had, if I wouldn't have been doing that meditation and heard what I had heard in that meditation, I probably wouldn't have written my book. Was that profound of a meditation. So, I still talk fast. I still have a lot of energy, but it's always followed up by some slow times. I'm way more introverted than I used to be. Well, the world's kind of done that to a lot of people because the world is a nasty place in some respects. But
I get that. That's awesome. Well, and we're going to put all of your stuff in the show notes. We'll have a link to her book and Instagram and things like that. Is there anywhere you would like to send people directly where they can find you?
Sure. My website, Angie Lickleter. My last name's a tough one, Lickleter, AngieLickleter.com. But you can also, if you have purchased my book or you do purchase my book, you can go and get a free journal that coincides with the different monsters in the book. I just developed this free journal because I felt like there's so many people out there that deal with the monsters that I did, and these are journaling prompts that maybe help dig a little deeper into some of those things. And that's what I want to do with my clients too, is talk about the surface level healing as far as gut health, but also do journaling alongside with it. So.
Awesome. Well, we are so stinking proud of you. And this has been awesome. Oh, we are all, I'll have a different story. I'll tell you a different day, but I think we're all just like a piece on the board right? And so we show up, and however that's used in another person's life, or how God uses it, or how the universe uses it, whatever, right? Like, we just show up for it, and then we just let it do what it does, right? There's no ego in that. We're just showing up. So
that's right.
Thank you for showing up, Ange. So proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for another empowering episode of Buddha Belly Life. For more information on gut health and mindset resources, visit buddhabellylife.com. And remember, heal yourself and then empower others to do the same.